Welcome back. We just had a 1 hour series on the housing market, and we are about to roll into our next hour to discuss the rental housing market here in Texas. It is equally competitive and cutthroat to find a rental property. I know from personal experience, as we are in the midst of building a home, so we're having to rent an apartment temporarily. So it's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of challenge to even find a 3-bedroom house, which is required for my family. So we have 2 panelists today to discuss the rental market here in Texas. First, we have Marianne Crompton. I'm so sorry if I didn't say your last name.
That's good.
Quite right. She's licensed in the state of Texas. She's been in property management business for over 30 years. And Marianne, would you like to introduce yourself any further?
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
Okay. And then we also welcome to our panel, Anna Jackson. She is 14 years experience in the real estate, and she's dedicated and focused and knowledgeable on all things leasing and property management. So thank you, ladies. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to our panel for the Up and Housing series. And just the same policy, if guests, y'all are welcome to stay on the chat for the entire rental market, or if you need to hop off, you were here more just for housing, you can hop off. That's really up to you. Same policy, you can leave questions in the chat. If not, we have some questions ready to go just to get the conversation started. So here we go. How can veterans and military members moving to Texas be competitive in the rental market?
Okay, I'll start with that one. Start looking early. Give yourself some time to look around, search the websites, utilize the military websites. There is Ahern. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. Homes.mil. And check with the local on-base housing office, as they will also have a list of off-base housing that is available. Make sure to put your deposits down. A lot of times we will hear people, they will call us and say, has our application been processed? Well, there's 4 in front of you. So you have to wait. And most of property management companies will do first come, first serve. So when you put your application in, which is usually online, that's mostly how things are done now. You enter your application information, it goes to the property management company, and they mark you as whatever, if you're first in line, second, third, or fourth. So we process the first one. Once the first one is approved or denied, whichever one, then we'll notify everyone else which way it went. But it's important, once you find a house, that you put your application in. That's the very first thing. Application fees usually run somewhere between $55 and $100 per person. They're usually per adult, which is 18 years or older. So if you have a family, your spouse, significant other, a son that's 19 going to school, they will also have to be processed as an applicant. They will not run credit if it's a child going to school, but they will do background checks because we want to make sure that everybody that's in the home has good backgrounds. And of course, being in the military, that's usually not an issue. Anna, you want to talk about? Yep.
You're muted.
I don't think I have anything else to add to that particular question. I think you covered it.
What you might want to do, make sure that all your documentation, because being military, you're going to have your PCS orders, right? And then you're going to have your LES orders, copies of driver's license, copies of pet photos. Have all that together, because when you submit your application, you will see it, at least on ours, and it's about the same for most property management companies, that you have to submit all of that together. Until all of that is together, that's not a complete application, and a lot of people will not accept you until you've got a whole application. So make sure start looking early, make sure you have all your documentation in order, and make sure that when you find a property that you don't wait and put that application in as soon as possible.
All right, thank you so much. This is kind of a leading question here. What type of renters are you seeing? Is it mostly people PCSing into the area, or a lot of veteran retirees, or are people looking for short-term rental houses?
We see a little bit of everything. We are not too far from Randolph Air Force Base, and so we do see a lot of military. We do get a lot of military applications. They're usually 1 to 2 years. Remember, comparing us to sales, we're not the biggest investment you will ever make in your life. We're temporary. We're your temporary partners, usually. And so we see 1 to 2 years on leases. We do see, of course, we see a lot of retirees from New Braunfels that are building or looking to find a house, not only specifically military, but regular civilians as well. But as far as the military, we do see people that are getting ready to retire, military, and they want to rent until they find out exactly where they want to be, where they want to live. And of course, we manage from North San Antonio all the way through San Marcos, down that 35 North corridor. So we will hit Cibolo, Schertz, Marion, New Braunfels, and all those areas. So yes, we do see a lot of that. I think that covers it. We don't do short term. I know a lot of times people will look for short term, like 3 months, while they're there just looking to see where they want to build on the retirement side. But we don't do short term, and with the market the way it is, there's no sense in doing a short term, because if you're gonna build, you're gonna be, a year, 18 months out. And if you buy a new home, like Yvonne and the other lady said, it's going to take some time to get into that one as well.
Absolutely. How do you find a legitimate rental company? And what are some red flags when looking for those property managers?
I will be happy to answer that question. A couple of the websites that, for military members that are looking for rental properties would be realtor.com. I don't recommend using Craigslist. There's a lot of people that will say that they're the owner of the home and they're not really the owner, and they say, wire me security deposit and I'll mail you a key. Anything when you're not physically speaking with somebody, I would highly recommend verifying that they are either with a management company or they're a legitimate listing. A couple ways of verifying is the owner of that property, the tax records are all public knowledge. So if you're speaking with someone and they say, my name is Joe Smith, you can verify that that is in fact the owner by the tax records. And if you are communicating with a property management company, you can also verify that they are licensed by going on to the trek.texas.gov website. So anybody who works under a broker has to be licensed, especially if they're a property manager.
I just wanted to say, we are all licensed. We're required to be licensed to do property management and to show properties, leasing properties. So we are governed by the same state agencies and national agencies that a real estate licensed real estate agent is.
Lots of things to think about when wanting to rent a house or an apartment or condo, all of the above. You kind of touched on this a little bit. What are the best sites in terms of where to find your rental? I mean, I like Zillow, but I'm not sure that that's always the most timely. I know a lot of,
That's,
okay, go ahead. Yes.
that is true. Some of the best sites that we see is, of course, use your military sites, those ones that we talked about, but realtor.com, there's a forrent.com, homes.com, hotpads.com. They're very reliable. Zillow and Trulia have a tendency to keep the rentals, the properties listed way past the time that they have rented. So a lot of times you'll go onto Zillow and Trulia and you'll see, oh, 3 houses, and oh my God, they're gorgeous. And you call or you search, and they've been gone off the market for 2 or 3 weeks. That is why I'm going to say the best place to start, and I know it sounds like a turning wheel here from this earlier seminar, but use a realtor. There are many realtors in the cities on the web that you can Google. When you Google homes for lease, homes for rent, rental properties, just the basic search criteria, there's tons of people that will come up. If you find a house if you Google a property management company, you can look at their inventory. Usually their inventory on those sites are always up to date, because as soon as they get something, they take it off the market. So those are very reliable. Once you do that, they'll get you in touch with someone to help you find your property. Not only can you see that house, but if they give you one of their leasing agents that's on staff or in their team, they will take you and show you the properties. They will, and a lot of times you can't come and see the properties. That's another thing, is you have to, if you can't come and to view the property yourself, find someone that will help you take a video, a zoom of the home, photos of the home, and a lot of times your realtors will do that. If you have a brother, a sister, a mother, a father that live in the area, have them meet with the realtor and go look at the property for you. But again, you can Google the companies. Those are some of the best websites that we know of, that, if you can, go directly to a property management company's site, or once you find something on realtor.com, it will direct you to that company.
And I'd like to add, if the military member is part of USA, they can also go onto the USA website and they will put them in contact with the realtor as well.
Very good. We have a question from the chat. With things changing so frequently, is it still 3 times your income for rent? Does that apply to apartments or homes as well?
Unfortunately, in the house rental market, and I'm not going to be able to speak for apartments. We don't do apartments, but I think they are still following the criteria. It is unfortunately 3 times the amount of the rent. The problem that we're seeing now is, here's the rental market like this, and it's going like this, and here's our salaries. They're not going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Civilians, military, everybody. And what's happening is it's knocking a lot of people out of the homes that they would like to be in, because they don't qualify for that criteria, and they're having to scale down into a lesser price home. We look at every application right now to see what the whole picture is on their criteria, their history, their rental history, whatever they have. Honestly, we try to hold to that 3 times the amount of the rent, but if they're $100 or $200 short, we're going to go to the owner. We're going to go to bat for our applicants and say, here's the deal. Here's what we have. And I'm not sure how much longer that our rental market can sustain that. It's just been very, very tough.
Absolutely. It is a crazy rental market. And then, like I alluded at the beginning of the chat, I was really lucky to have found a 3-bedroom where we are at. Can we talk a little bit about the process, the rental process? Do you pay how early do you put that deposit down to even hold a rental house or an apartment? Let's tell us about the process, just a general overview.
So once you find a property that you are interested in applying, you would initially apply for the property and pay the application fee. Typically, most management companies, and I can't speak on behalf of apartments, but residential homes, our policy normally is they will hold the home for up to 2 weeks from the time of your application being approved. They do have to pay a security deposit. Our policy is a security deposit and a lease have to be signed within 24 hours of your application and getting approved. Some companies do 48 hours. So it's anywhere between 24 and 48 hours where you are required to sign the lease and pay a deposit. And then, your lease could start 2 weeks later, and then you pay, again, depending on that company's policy, you could either pay a prorated rent upfront or pay a full month's rent upfront.
That's a lot. That's a lot for families. What incentives have you seen, or have our renters owners cut back on incentivizing and giving options for our military and veteran families within the rental markets?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of incentives in the rental market as it would be in the sales, of course. There are some companies, mostly in the apartment industry, that will give discounts to the military, maybe cut back their application fees, require a lower security deposit, things like that. There's not a whole lot of incentive in the property management housing for militaries coming in because of the competitive market. Back in the old days, there were waiving security deposits, waiving application fees, giving them 2 to 3 weeks free rent, move in. And there's just not any of that right now anywhere. It's really hard. It's really hard to have any incentives for that.
What do you see on average? Because we had to extend our lease, and that typically means that you pay an increased rate. Do you know on average how much the owner will increase your rate if you do an extension?
It ultimately depends on the owner, but we see anywhere between $100 increase to as high as $200. Ultimately, it's up to the owner, but as a management company, we present that to the homeowner and leave it up to them to decide as far as an exact amount.
What about pets? I know a lot of our military families or veteran families, they have pets in their life. Do you see that as a real deterrence to finding a rental property?
Before we answer that, I wanted to go back to your question on the extensions.
Okay.
It depends also in the time of the year that people want to do month to month or extend just a month or two, because there are the winter months that has been in the past, not this last year or so, but it's going to come again, that the rental market slows down from September to into January, February. Then it picks up again in March, and goes back in, and it's a cycle. So depending on what time they are requesting an extension, that will matter on whether or not the owners agree to extend or to get a new lease in there for a longer term.
Okay. All right. Now you tell me about Fido and the pets and does that make you less competitive if you own a bunch of dogs and you're trying to find a rental property, or cats, or any pets that we shouldn't have?
No llamas. So pets it's a hairy situation because a lot of our owners are now saying no pets, either because they've had that experience or they have, there's just not enough deposit in the world that a tenant could pay to protect their investment. We do advise owners that if you say absolutely no pets, you do cut your applicants in over half. Because in today's world, everybody either has a cat or a dog or a goat or a horse, like me. So, we do strongly encourage, but there are some owners that will say absolutely no pets. We have a lot of owners that are allergic to cats, so they say no cats. We have some owners that will be reluctant to allow pets, but they put a lot of restrictions, like, over 2 years old, they have to be spayed and neutered, a certain weight, so no dogs over 50 pounds. So it ultimately depends on the owner, but if you have pets, I don't think it's really an issue as far as finding a rental. We see a lot of applicants that have German Shepherds and Rottweilers and Pit Bulls, and those are aggressive breeds, which 99% of the management companies here in the New Braunfels and even in the San Antonio area have, they do not accept that breed of pet.
Yes, that's very true. A lot of base housing won't accept those breeds as well. So that makes it extra challenging for our military families. Let's see. Do we have no questions in the chat this time? To our guest, feel free to add questions to the chat. Okay, sight unseen. I've definitely been there as a military spouse, where you are in a very hot housing market, and you are trying to find a rental. And what do you recommend to those people coming in town and trying to find a rental and are willing to put money down, deposit down, sight unseen?
We have a lot of that. And it's not just military, but it's everywhere. We do have a form for the applicants that want to go ahead and process their application and get a home that is sight unseen, that they have to sign prior to the application being processed. Again, I'm going to stress, if you have a family member that's close by, or a friend that can help you, or a realtor that will go do a video for you, it is so important that you see the current condition of a home. We had before, several years ago, an issue about realtors putting in photos of a new home that was built, but the tenant was moving out and been in there 3 years, and they'd used those new photos. And so they had to kind of wash that out and clear that up with the MLS boards and things like that. And it's better now, but you always have to be careful of what you rent sight unseen. You want to make sure that if the backyard is dead and doesn't have any grass back there, that you know about it. And so you have to be careful with that. But there is a form that they can sign if they have no other way and have to get this home, that they can sign. 9 times out of 10, they will want to look at it before they move in. At that point, it's too late. You can't get your security deposit back, and you've signed the lease. And if it became impossible and you couldn't move in there for whatever reason, there's terminating clauses and fees and things like that you could get out of it. But, you can't just say, oh, never mind, I didn't like that house, I thought it looked different in the photos, I'm going to go somewhere else. You can't do that once you've put your deposit and signed the lease. So be careful about that.
Absolutely. My little personal story on that is we were coming back from Hawaii and to Colorado, and I wrongly assumed that homes in Colorado would have air conditioning. They don't always have air conditioning. Especially this was a beautiful older home. And yeah, we signed sight unseen, and we lived for 2 years in a house without air conditioning. And it does from time to time get warm in Colorado. So don't make assumptions, ask all the questions, and read all of your rental information, and dot your I's and cross your T's on all that. But yes, absolutely. A lot of military families have been there with the sight unseen. Let's talk finances a little bit. What is the standard credit score needed to get into a rental market these days across Texas?
Well, that is a very good question. So our company policies, we don't really necessarily look at the score itself. We look at what's bringing it down and how recent. So, I know, and there are some management companies that will have a limit of, anything under 600, you have to have a cosigner or you have to pay a double deposit. We don't particularly do that. We look at the application as a whole. We've had some members where they have a fairly low credit score, and it's because they have all medical or have student loans. And it's just they don't really have a whole lot of continuing credit, so their score is really low. So we don't really base it on the score itself. Some companies do, but we do not.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that one, or next question? Let's see. When you meet a prospective renter, what red flags do you potentially see in that person? It's kind of a trick question there.
We normally do not meet our applicants face to face until it's time for them to move in. They meet us, they sign all the documents, we go over everything, we give them the keys. So at that point, what we have is our credit checks, our background checks, renters, the landlord's information when we check the previous rental history and things like that. What can happen though, while we're processing the applications, or I try to train everyone to have an eagle eye when you're looking at an application, and it's very hard sometimes. So you look at different things. So if the driver's license address doesn't match the last current address and it doesn't show up anywhere on there, it probably means that they were in an apartment or a home, broke a lease, and didn't put that property on their application, hoping we would not catch it. Unfortunately, when you change your addresses on your driver's license, or fortunately for us, that does go to the credit bureaus. And so if we can see all the different places that they've lived, and if they check, I mean, if we, look at that, we can see that, oh, hey, you missed this address. Tell us about this. Tell us about this place. So that is one of the things that happens quite a bit, or they just, just didn't think about it or whatever, and it works out. So that's about pretty much all we can do for red flags on applicants.
I bet you have some stories on red flags on applicants, or just dealing with folks in general. So on the process again, how far in advance should a military family or veteran family start applying for a rental house?
Again, they probably should start as early as possible. What they need to do is look at their current lease, when their move out dates are, how long are they requiring you to give them notice? A lot of times you're required to give 30-day notice, 45-day notice, 60-day notice. 60 days is notice is coming into the market quite often now. We switched ours from 30 to 45 days about a year ago. So look at that first and see what those timeframes are. And on that 59th day or 44th day or whatever, start looking. A lot of property management companies will not accept your application process if you have not given notice to your prior landlord. And what that is doing is trying to make sure that you're not going to skip on one landlord to go to another. That's one of the things. And they want to make sure that you have all your timing correct. So as soon as possible, start looking. Remember, most property management companies will not hold a property for longer, especially now in this market, for longer than 2 weeks from the time you're approved. So if you put an application, if you start looking 30 days, or let's take it back, you start looking 60 days in advance, you need to make sure that that property is available at the time you're looking for, because it might be vacant and they're not going to hold the property vacant for 2 months. So make sure that your property that you're looking at, that the availability date is going to match your criteria that you're looking for. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. It's about, lining it all up and making sure it works out right with the timing. I mean, the timing is everything. I'm from personal life experience here, trying to line it up. We have a question from the chat. Does it look bad or good for the previous landlord if the previous landlord is military housing? That's a good question.
No, because I know from personal experience when when you're renting on base, your LES is actually going to say base housing instead of your BAH. So, and a lot of times they won't even, they won't give us your actual rental history because it's on your LES anyways. So there's not really any bad things coming from on base housing. Off base is where we get the bad stuff from when they're renting from a landlord that, is not a property management company. So
For sure. I always thought showing that consistency in payment, like living in base housing, because typically that might be a longer duration, that's always a good thing to show consistency in payment history, that you were there for probably your entire assignment, your tour. Let's see, military members. This is a very legit and real fear. They move so frequently and it can be used against them. Is it a good idea for service members to offer a multi-year lease with a military clause in the lease? And how do they market themselves to be competitive?
That's a good question. So, I mean, there's not really a way to market them. So most of our rentals are going to be in the New Braunfels Hill Country area. San Antonio has a larger population of military members and owners who you have a higher chance of renting a home that has an owner that's a landlord than, possibly a home in New Braunfels. And a lot of times if the owner is military, they'll say, oh, is my tenant Air Force or Army, and they can look the tenant up in their database. So just, if the owner is military, then obviously that's a plus for the tenant. It could also be a bad thing if they trash the house.
For sure. We kind of talked about this a little bit. Can you speak a little bit wider on where you find your rental houses, realtors.com or other than, and then how you find your rental house agent on somebody who can help you find a real estate agent, a professional that can help you find a rental house. Or
okay. If you Google rental homes, houses for lease, houses for rent, you're going to have a plethora of companies come up. If you click on a property management company, and also be specific when you're searching, a rental house in New Braunfels, rental house close to Randolph, rental house in Cibolo, whatever, be specific on what you're looking for. once you find a property management company, you can click on that company. And I will tell you 99.9% of the property management companies today have their inventory on their website. A realtor.com lead, you're going to click on that, and the realtor.com. Now I will tell you on realtor.com, the realtors that pay for leads and on their websites and things like that will get leads from realtor.com and things like that before a property management company will, because it's coming from that huge rental web out there on realtor.com. So that they will send that lead to whoever owns that rental market or owns that rental listing. So say you click on one of my rentals on realtor.com, it's going to forward me your data information, your lead, all your stuff. And then we call you or we email you and say, hi. Usually we call you first if there's a phone number and say, hi, we got your information. I understand you're looking for at this house on blankety blank road, whatever. Once they start that dialogue, they will then, if it's still available, they will then talk to them about what their wants and needs are to make sure that house fits them. And then they will do the qualifying criteria. Every property management company is required to have criteria, a rental criteria available to give to anyone that asks for it. Make sure you look at that criteria before you start your application process. Make sure you understand it. And this person, this realtor that's talking with you can go over that criteria for that specific property. You don't have to look at one property at a time and apply, then look at another. You can go look at 5 or 6 houses. Again, like Yvonne said, after 5 houses, you get a little confused and it starts getting a little muddy. And did that have a fenced backyard? Or, you just can't remember. So I recommend 3 a day at the most. There's not a whole lot in the rental market right now, so you're not going to be able to pick 10 or 15 to go look at one time. There's just not that kind of market right now. But once you pick your houses that you like, go look at all of them. And that realtor, that leasing agent that's helping you can look at other houses in our huge MLS system. It doesn't have to be just with that one company. Does that make sense? So they can find one that Century 21 has, one that Coldwell Banker has, one that Reliance has, one, 3 or 4 others. You can look at all the different availability and pick which one you want to go see, or pick the best 3. Then from there, you go and you look. But the best way to do it is to Google your home search. Be specific. And make sure that you pick someone that I would not recommend Craigslist. That's dangerous. There are so many people out there that are saying, send me your security deposit. I'll give you the lockbox. You can move in and we'll do your lease later. You know how appealing that is to some people? That's very appealing. And it was a horrible scam. We had one happen to us before. We went to do an inspection on a vacant property, and no, I take it back. Our leasing agent went to show the property and it was occupied. They called me. We had to go visit with them. The people signed a lease with some Tom, Dick, and Harry and paid them all their rent, all their money, and we had to evict them. It was very sad, and it felt to them very real, very honest, and very real. So it was very sad. So be careful, but Googling, and everybody has a realtor or knows a realtor, I think, at least one realtor. When you're a realtor, that means something. You have a code of ethics. You're licensed. You're required to do certain things. If you know a realtor, talk to them, ask them, hey, do you know anybody over there? Can you check? Can you look? send me to some property management company, something like that, instead of just trying to search blindly and find somebody. And we're always here. You can always call us.
You brought a really good point about finding people that you trust. We own a rental property. We have had it for over a decade now. Here's a moment for you to shine. Why should we, as the homeowner, when we leave and we're debating whether to sell our house or rent our house, why should we go with a property manager versus trying to go it on your own?
I'm going to speak to that for a minute, and then I'm going to let Anna take over on that one a little bit, let her give her 2 cents in. There are a few homeowners that can manage their properties very well. There are some homeowners that are too easygoing, very kind and gentle, that should not be managing their properties. There are property managers, there are homeowners that are too rough and too mean and don't look at what the landlord's rules and regulations are and would treat tenants very badly. There are rules that you can't do when you're a landlord. You can't just go and lock them out. You can't go and open the door and take their TV. You can't do those kind of things. There's so many things that you can't do. I highly recommend at least interviewing property management companies to find out what services they offer. What can they do for you? You are a different homeowner than the one down the street. There's not 2 same homeowners. So what property management company is the best for you that can do what you need? I'll tell you, we've had several owners call us and say, tell us about yourself, tell us about your company, give us, your proposals. They look at our stuff, they call us and say, you know what, I think we're going to try this on our own. And we say, okay, but we're here. 3 months later, the tenant hasn't paid. They don't know what to do. They call us. We get the property. We put it in management. We take care of the tenant. We either evict them and put a new one in, or we deal with the issues because we are trained to know the rental market. We're trained to know the rules and regulations, the laws in leasing your property. So we have to be very careful what we can and can't do. Just for the knowledge of that, of what do you do in this circumstance? How do you do this? What's the legal aspect of this? Just for that, I highly recommend that you get a property management company. Now, is every single property management company the same? Absolutely not. There are some that are a little less manageable than others. But remember, every property management company has a broker and has real estate licensed property managers under them. So we're governed to do the right thing. And we also have a lot of arms out there for leasing possibilities. We can probably lease your property a lot faster. The biggest and most important thing that I hear owners say why they come to us is the background checks and the qualifying of good, honest tenants. That's one of the biggest values they see. A lot of owners say, you know what, I don't want to mess with repairs. Don't call me unless you need me. I trust you. Some say, call me for every repair. I want to know what's going on. You call me when you get an application. I want to look at it. I want to see it. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. There's just so many different ways. And I think it's important that you have guidance and the proper guidance for leasing your home out.
Well, kudos to your line of work. We've been so thankful over the years for having our rental property with a property manager. We've had really good success rate with our tenants, our current tenant. This is like year 4. So it's been a good experience, a thankful experience to have had a property manager for our rental house in Georgia. We do have a question from the chat. Is it typical for the realtor leasing agency to charge 33% of the first month's rent? Whew, that sounds like a story.
Okay, so I need the clarification on that. Charge who?
Me.
Michelle, you want to jump on?
I went with, because we are moving from Columbus, Texas, over to Bastrop. The realtor / leasing agent, her agency charges 33% for me to go through her because I couldn't get a local Bastrop realtor to call me back. She's out of Cedar Creek.
So you as the person wanting to find a rental, you're
Yes.
not the homeowner.
Nope.
Okay. I understand that. And I was going to talk about that on one of these other questions. Most of all of where we work, the Northeast San Antonio, all the way through San Marcos, leasing agents that I have dealt with do not charge anything. It's a free service. There are apartment locators now that are doing homes and apartments. I will tell you, once you pass that little San Marcos, see you later sign, Austin, and going out that way, I know that they are charged, some are charging for fees. With the gas pricing the way it is, and with all of the economy changing, I would not be surprised if I see more and more of that happening coming down south from there. It is an uncomfortable thing to have to pay somebody to show you rentals. It could be because that owner is not paying the leasing commission, that they have to get it by themselves. I don't know, but that could be a possibility. But I think that just with the services and the high increase of fuel, I think we might see that more and more before it slows down to an even keel. And, you know, like everything else, once you start charging something, you know, normally people do not go backwards in anything. So I wish I had better response for that.
Oh, I don't know. Real estate's it's a highs and lows market. That one charging people to find a house. I don't know. That one might go backwards.
I was fine with it when we were buying a house. You know, I understood all of everything that we did. I understood when we were buying a house. The renting, however, with her charging me, I was like, well, all right, well, because we don't know the market. So, you know, and then the fact that she's asking for bank statements, because some of the landlords are asking for bank statements, like 5 to 6 months worth of bank statements, as they won't accept VA benefit letters for, you know, for proof of income.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking that it's mainly because Bastrop doesn't have probably a lot of veterans and they don't deal with that, but they're not accepting any of that. So I had to print off bank statements and redact over half of it just so they can see that we're getting all of that. You know, I mean, it's wild. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get really uncomfortable because all I'm doing is wanting to rent your house. I'm not wanting to buy it. You know, I'm just wanting to rent it.
Wow.
I've not heard of anyone not accepting the military documents. That's the first for me, and I'm not sure that's kosher. But you know, they should be accepting that. The only time that we require bank statements or 2 years of your filings is when you're an independent contractor, when you have your own company, things like that. So, or, you know, sometimes we ask for proof of your Social Security income when you're in the retirement stages and things like that, or your IRA contributions. You know, we've got to have the proof. You've got to have the proof of income. But I've never seen that about the military.
Well, we have, you know, the VA gives out the benefit letter and it has all of it on there, everything on there. His retirement, however, you know, DOD is weird on that. So, you know, I understand that part. But then if we can give them the VA benefit letter and pay stubs from his job, then why are you then also going, no, we need this other stuff? And I went with her because she was the first one to get back to me, but I'm starting to question whether she's actually looking at the leasing stuff or whether she's going off of like the buying market type of criteria.
Well, that is another reason I highly recommend, if possible, to find a property management company that that has inventory that you need. You know, I'm not sure what your position was there, if you were like, you had to have that house, or, but I mean, maybe you asked up front and find out if there's fees before you start looking with the person, and then, you know, find somebody that you're more comfortable with, just like when you're buying a house. You have to. Understanding that the rental market doesn't wait around for anyone right now. It's hard, but
Wow. I've never quite heard of that. Michelle, I might also recommend that maybe you talk to like the Texas Veteran Commission to especially on your VA benefits letter. Like that shouldn't be an issue to accept that as a form of income as legitimate. So that might be a final note. Marianne, Anna, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to give our group here?
a couple of things. Don't forget, a lot of companies, we do, require renters insurance. So you need to be ready to provide a policy on that for the term of that lease. Anna has a funny story I wanted her to tell you about pets. Anna is one of my property managers. I don't deal with the tenants and owners every day. I do hear about everything every day, and I do oversee everything every day, but she literally gets in the middle of it all. And so I wanted her to tell you a little story about her puppy incident.
Well, it's not really funny. It's just a story as to why some owners don't allow pets after this type of experience. And it was, and this happened just a matter of a couple months ago. A tenant had lived there for 1 year, and they did have one authorized pet. Well, this house is on Pier and Beam, and it's a home that was built way before 1978. I mean, it was probably 1950 home, and has original wood floors throughout. Well, the tenant used the dining room that had doors, pocket doors, as their pet room. Well, they apparently went out of town for about a month and had a family member come and check on their dog. Well, they have the black crates that have the little black pan that goes underneath it. Well, they took the pan out and just had the crate with some bed in it, and the dog's urine ate away the wood floor, or saturated it to the point where that wood floor just fell through the wall, or fell through the floor. And once the tenant moved out, we had to have half of that wood floor restored in its original wood floor. So we were looking at well over a couple $1,000s. And then in addition to that, the tenant did not take good care as far as flea treatment. And the house was infested with fleas for over a month and a half. We had to do 2 flea treatments. I got locked upstairs with fleas, but I managed to somehow jimmy my way out of the upstairs master bedroom. But the moral of the story is, you know, pets can do damage. And not only did they do damage to the floor, but they, you know, we couldn't market this house for over a month and a half because of the floor and the fleas, because I obviously am not going to show a home when I know it's infested. So, you know, that's was not really a funny story, but you know, it was a story as far as why some owners say no pets.
All right, I get it. We have a limit on our rental property on how many pets they can have. And we have a sunroom. This is in Georgia, so they call it a Florida room out there. And it has these kind of these little 4-track siding things that can come up and come down to have screens or not have screens, and it is well written and documented into the leasing agreement for every tenant of managing your animals in that area of the house, because it's very appealing. People want to put their dog out on the porch, but man, you mess with that, that's an expensive part of the house. But no, pets are they're a touchy subject often for both the tenants and the homeowners. People want to allow their animals in, and they want to have Fido with them. But I think my biggest piece of advice on pets is just don't get too many. I think most homeowners will allow 1 or 2, but if you got a whole arsenal of animals that you're trying to bring into a rental property, not going to work. I mean, I think base housing cuts it off at 3 or 2. Okay, 2 or 3. It's been a while since I've lived on base. So, but all right, around the room, any final comments or questions? And for our panelists? Don't think so. But I just want to say, Anna, Marianne, thank you so much for coming on. And to our guests, if you guys have any questions that you'd like me to get to Marianne and Anna, just let me know and I can get it to them directly. Or if you're looking to relocate to the San Antonio area, I can also get that to them. Their contact information. I did get permission to share some of the Buffini methodology in from our chat. So I'm going to just drop that into the chat box. There it goes. It's uploading. That is copyright material. So that is for the purposes of our chat. And then we'll also have another opportunity for our housing specialist to talk about the Buffini methodology. Since we had such a great conversation, we didn't actually get to it today. So we're going to bring them back on and have another opportunity to talk Buffini and why we feel at the Veteran Spouse Network in a holistic approach, because we know that as you transition out of the military, as you're looking for that next assignment or that next job or life, we're more than just our job. We are transitioning out to make a whole life for ourselves. We're the whole family, the whole person. So we definitely want to honor that time and talk about the Buffini methodology. And again, to our rental specialists, thank you guys so much for coming on board. We greatly appreciate you. And if you have any questions, please send them my way. And then I think that's a wrap. I think I'm going to stop recording, and thanks again, folks.